Hi everyone, I'm Miss Bailey and I'm with the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Los Angeles, and today you're in our virtual STEM laboratory. And today it's Earth Day! Happy Earth Day everyone! So today's experiment is obviously going to be about Earth Day, and one of my favorite parts about Earth Day is learning about the ocean. So today's experiment is going to be about the ocean and how we impact the ocean. So if you look at my table, you're probably thinking, Miss Bailey, why do you have so much trash on your table? This is actually one of the things that we'll be using today. So last week it rained quite a bit, and what do you think happens after it rains? Have you ever noticed these little things on the curbs, usually on the corners, that say storm drain? They usually have a picture of a fish or a skeleton of a fish, and it says, "This drains to ocean, no dumping." And so what that means is everything on the street can go directly to the ocean, and that's called a storm drain. There's nothing that cleans those out. So anything that's on the street, maybe some twigs from trees, maybe some dog poop that someone left behind, maybe some leaves, maybe some dried stuff like that, and also maybe some trash that maybe people forgot to put away, or maybe it fell out of their car, or maybe it fell out of their pocket. This is what we call litter, and all of this goes directly to the ocean once it rains. So we understand that. We understand that all of this will go to the ocean eventually, unfortunately. But what happens to it once it's there? Students or members, if you do go to the beach, make sure that you don't go to the beach immediately after a rainstorm. You should wait at least 3 days after a rainstorm to go to the beach once the beaches are open again. And you may find a rainstorm outlet at one of the beaches that you go to, maybe. If you do, don't swim by there, swim somewhere else. But you may see that some of this trash ends up on the beach. But some of it, a lot of it in fact, doesn't end up on the beach. It ends up in the ocean where all those fishes and the octopuses and the sharks are all living. So we're gonna play a little game of sink or float. And to do this, you'll need some trash. Now, I don't want you to go like in your kitchen trash and just grab out everything. Please make sure you're talking to your parents or whoever's trash you're digging through to make sure it's okay. And maybe you want to rinse it off in the sink or wipe it down to make sure it's not totally gross. That's what I did with all of my stuff here. You'll also need a tub of water, and you'll need a piece of paper or a pen, a piece of paper and a pen or a marker. And what we're going to do is one by one, we're going to take all of my items of trash, and all the items of trash you've collected. You can collect as many or as little as you like. And we're going to ask ourselves, will this sink or will this float? And then we're going to write that down on our piece of paper. We're going to make a little graph that looks like this. It'll have the item, it'll have our guess of whether it'll sink or float, and then it'll have a space for us to actually record what really happened. And before we get into this, before we do this demonstration together, I want to ask you, why is it important to know if plastic will sink or float? Think about it. If any of this plastic sinks, how would that impact animals in the ocean? And if any of this trash floats, how would that impact animals in the ocean? What animals can you think of that live at the top of the ocean? Maybe plankton, maybe seaweed, maybe birds, maybe otters, maybe sharks. What lives at the bottom? Maybe octopuses, maybe lobsters, maybe crabs. There's all kinds of different things that live all throughout the water column in our oceans. So I'm going to do a few of my items here with you. And you can follow along with all the different items that you have. I'll start off with some that you may have at home. This first one is a bottle cap from a juice bottle from one of my friends. So I think this is going to float. So I'm going to write down on my graph, I'm going to write down that it's a cap. I'm going to write down that I think it's going to float. Let's see. Oh, it floated. And if we fill it with water, it still floats. You should always do that. If there's any little air bubbles, you should poke it. That way the air bubbles disappear. You know what, we can actually leave it there. And we're gonna write down that it floated. Okay, let's see, what else do we wanna do? Ooh, a plastic fork. Now, I borrowed this from one of my friends. I personally try not to use these too much. If you do, try to reuse them as much as you can. I think this fork is also going to float. Let's see. Oh, interesting. It sunk. Okay, so we're going to write that down, that it sunk or that it sinks. And this is also a really good time, scientists, to remember that we're making a hypothesis when we're guessing. And sometimes our hypothesis is right, and sometimes it's not, and that's okay. What else? Let's do this whole soda can bottle. I think that this soda bottle is gonna float. Let's see. Yeah, it floats. All right, this guy's too big. We're gonna take him out. And we're gonna write down that he floated. Okay. These are some leaves from broccoli. And I think that these broccoli leaves are gonna sink. Let's see what happens. I'm just gonna put in one of them. It floated, even with the poke test, it floats. Okay, now this is a paper bag from one of my online purchases. You know the little plastic bags that they use to make sure your stuff is really safe? So I'm gonna put plastic bag. And when you're writing this stuff down, it doesn't have to be super detailed. This is all for you as your work as a scientist. I think this plastic bag is gonna float. Let's see. Yep, even with the poke test, it floats. This. Okay, let's move on to something a little different. I have a packet of soy sauce from my Chinese food. And I think this is gonna sink because it feels really heavy. Oh, that was pretty cool. It sunk to the bottom and then it floated right back up. Kind of reminds me of our ketchup diver that we had a few weeks ago. Alrighty. And I have a piece of bubble wrap and paper from another online purchase. And this also floats. Okay. And I have one interesting piece of trash that I found. I found a marble. Now this marble's pretty heavy, so I think this is gonna sink. And it did. Cool. So if we put all of our trash back in and pretend that this tub of water is the ocean after a rainstorm, we'll have a really good idea of what a lot of our ocean animals have to deal with after it rains, and even on a daily basis. Okay, now you can see that most of my trash is at the surface of the water, but there are a few things like the plastic fork, like that wrapper, like my marble, that are sinking, and it looks like some wrappers are even floating in the middle. And this impacts all the different ocean animals that live in the ocean. There are lots of ocean animals that live at the very top, like birds, like sea otters, different species of fishes, and plankton. And plankton are really important. They're very tiny microorganisms that actually make our oxygen. And if we look at the bottom, now that's where all the bigger fish, like octopuses and crabs and lobsters and maybe even some slugs, that's where they would live, at the bottom. So no matter where you are in the ocean, you will still have to deal with our trash. All right, now you're probably thinking, okay, Miss Bailey, what am I gonna do with this information? Since it's Earth Day, I want you to challenge yourself, to challenge your family. See what kind of trash you're throwing away. See if any of your trash can be recycled maybe. Maybe you can do a super quick, very local street cleanup. Maybe you can go right in front of your house with your parent or guardian, and if there's any trash in front of your street or in front of your house, if it's safe to pick up, go ahead and pick it up. Because if you don't, all of the trash will eventually go to the ocean. And that's not fair for all those ocean animals. And if you like to eat fish, well, not good either. Alrighty, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed today's experiment. Happy Earth Day, and I'll see you next time.